This is the College Football Week 6 preview for Thursday, October 3rd, 2019. And now, live from Las Vegas, the host of the Betmaker Show, Brian Blessing.
The NFL season rolls right along, and so do we. Brian Blessing in Las Vegas. It's one of our favorite segments of the week. It's a Monday morning, and we get our very first look at the new lines for the upcoming week with our go-to man, Jack, the head odds maker for the NFL at Bookmaker. We've got a coach firing, Jay Gruden's out in Washington, and some results that were eyebrow-raising, but I think we kind of know what we're dealing with a lot of these teams. So let's first and foremost welcome Jack on board. It's going by fast, man.
It really is. Say a third of the way through the regular season.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, we talk about this all summer, and then before you know it, you hit the halfway point, but it is really racing by, but some interesting stuff. Let's start with the Thursday game, Jack. The Giants and the Patriots. The number is 17. Total on the game is 43.5. Jones, a dose of reality against Minnesota this past week. Patriots were asleep at the switch for the first half of their game with Washington a week after being frustrated by Buffalo. But then, as is their custom, they make adjustments and just a workmanlike decimation of a weaker foe, taking out the Patriots, or taking out the Redskins. We're sitting here looking at 17. What was the thought process on the number here with the short week?
Well, we opened it up at on Saturday. We opened this game up at 15, and then off the performances yesterday, just mild adjustments, very little money, and you're up to 17. Not much there. I mean, it looks like a repeat of last week. Same thing. They may sleepwalk through the first half, but they'll get there in the end.
Are the Patriots still of that ilk? The Buffalo game notwithstanding, that they just kind of put the Sasquatch foot on people, that 17's not scaring people? I mean, if anything, is this a number that goes up, or will professional money absolutely be in take mode here?
I think the professional money, actually, the pros run Giants this week over Minnesota, taking 6, +6 minus 0.5. They'll probably take 17.5, but I don't think there'll be an avalanche of it. So I think 17 will stay there most of the week.
You don't see this that often, but I mean, a 17-point favorite, a big favorite with a total that's a relatively normal number here. I mean, that's basically telling you that if anything, the Patriots are going to come close to the total themselves.
Right. I mean, the Patriot defenses, Brady may have slipped just a little, but the Patriot defense is better than it's been in a number of years. I mean, they're giving up about, over the last 4 games, probably 221 yards a game. That's 100-plus yards below the league average, which is basically a touchdown.
Yeah, that point is so well taken, because what happens, even if Brady has slowed down and maybe they don't have this big home run threat, it's still an incredibly efficient offense. But that defense is so good. What happens, Jack, is not only are you trying to stop an offense that kind of works like a greased wheel, but generally, because the Patriots' defense is so good, they get off the field and the opposing defense is on the field all the time against Brady, and that's just a killer combination.
And even that, when Brady's not driving them the length of the field, they set him up with field position, and he seems to always take advantage of it.
All right, a game that's over in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. We get an NFC South battle here with Carolina, 1.5, total 48.5. Carolina and Tampa Bay. Bucs didn't get the win against the Saints, but it wasn't like they got rolled. They were competitive. And what are we here to make of Carolina here? This is a team that's found their groove without Cam Newton.
It is. Allen has played very well in relief. I think it's been 3 games now. In those 3 games, they're averaging 385 yards on offense. He's moving the ball very well. The defense has been pedestrian the last few games, but off recent efforts, they're a little better than Tampa Bay, and I would just see this number going up. We opened at 2.5 on the bottom. It's already 1.5 on top, and I wouldn't be surprised if it gets to 2.5.
So this is truly, right? I mean, this is a neutral field. Is it an easier number to make?
It is. I mean, because basically you start making a number 4 a neutral field, then it's all the minor adjustments for where it's being played, then the adjustments for the injuries, adjustments for situations, rest, etc., coming off a bye, all that stuff.
All right. Now, this one I find pretty interesting. Cincinnati and Baltimore. Baltimore's laying 12.5. Total on the game is 48.5. And maybe this is more handicapping than, what is the number? The Bengals were invisible until the closing minutes of the game against Arizona, came back, tied it, and then lose it. The Ravens find a way to beat a badly undermanned Pittsburgh team that we'll talk about in a moment. But Baltimore's laying 12.5. Total on the game is 48.5. The one thing I would say, Jack, there's just something about when Baltimore plays Pittsburgh, either one of those teams, they just beat each other up, and you wonder what's left in the tank for the following week. Was that factored into this number at all?
It was. We try and sometimes we will miss a factor, but we try and factor in everything that we can conceivably think of. And in this, we opened this game 10.5 on Saturday. Money and adjustments after yesterday. I never thought I would say this, but perhaps Marvin Lewis was doing a good job as coach.
You're the first. We've got breaking news. You may be right. Oh, can you imagine that? Yeah, people in Cincinnati say, bring them back.
Right.
Oh, my. That's funny. Houston and Kansas City. This is a huge game. One of the huge early games. KC 6-point favorite. Total on the game is 55.5. Texans kind of a Jekyll and a Hyde, up and down, in and out, 1 week to the next. I mean, you look like a juggernaut, I guess, when you play Atlanta's defense this year, but Will Fuller was on fire. Watson looked really, really good. And Kansas City, that was intriguing, wasn't it? Indy basically just punched him in the mouth.
They did, and Kansas City lost some defensive players last night. We saw Mahomes with the ankle. We're assuming he's all right, but you're never sure. This game on Saturday was 7.5. Opened back up this morning at 6.5, and right away there was money for the underdog, down to 6. And for one of the few times I would see Kansas City going down in the public betting.
Well, the number's indicative of that, isn't it? They're Houston at bookmakers +6, -15.
Right.
If anything, still trending down, correct?
It is trending down, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it sink just a little lower. And
all right.
Actually, then we'll wait word on Mahomes, 100%, 50%, whatever he is.
All right. The unbeaten starting to drop like flies. The Saints and the Jags. Wow. How about this? A pick. Total on the game is 43.5. This Jags defense is the real deal. The Minshew kid is solid. They're not going to go out there and string an army of wins together, but they're competitive every game at home. Bridgewater started to stretch the field yesterday, Jack, which was a good sign for them. It was a lot of dink and dunk stuff. But finally, it took them a while, but they could care less, right? They're winning football games. But apparently now Bridgewater stretching the field and really got Michael Thomas back in the offense. That's a big development.
That was. And I had a friend of mine who's from New Orleans, and he told me that's exactly what was going to happen. And I didn't believe him. I sort of favored Tampa Bay yesterday. I thought the advantage was at quarterback, and I was proved wrong. It was he did exactly what they said they would, as you're saying right now, stretch the field. All of a sudden, they thought he was like a regular quarterback and let him play.
Well, if that is something that stands up, although, Breeze is throwing the football again, maybe another, who knows, 2-3 weeks. But if Bridgewater can indeed stretch the field, look out, because then Kamara becomes an even bigger threat. And when they knew he was going to be the focal point of the offense, they were still winning games.
Well, and I think that's Peyton's philosophy offensively. Even with Breeze will dink and dunk a lot, but when he gets a shot, he'll take it downfield, and that's what Peyton needs to get his offensive magic working. And now he seems to have related that to Bridgewater, and he's letting him do it.
For outstanding information and special offerings and promotions, we invite you and encourage you to sign up for our newsletter today simply by going to the website at betmaker.com. All right, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we've got a development in the NFC East with the Cowboys losing in back-to-back weeks. The Eagles find themselves right there. and this becomes a real horse race again, but a really good football game. Minnesota laying 3. Total on the game is 43. Knock on wood, was a believer in Minnesota against the Giants. The Giants, just when they go out of division at home, goofy things happen to them. But it was more of an intangible thing, Jack, where Minnesota was chirping, and you had to say, okay, well, how will they react? Well, they reacted well. They were a mad football team. Thielen saying, how can I get only one target in a game? And honestly, when a guy like that speaks, I think you'll listen. Diggs seems to be more of a me guy, and it would, go in one ear and out the other. But when Thielen's saying something, well, the bottom line is they responded. They've got the running game. Thielen went nuts, so they beat the Giants. Back home now, have they righted the ship? But this is the deep end of the pool against an Eagles team I think is one of the most complete teams in the NFC.
I think, we opened this game 3. It's still 3 dog money a little. I think it stays right there, perhaps goes to 2.5. But I think you're right. Philly's a good team. They didn't show it yesterday against the Jets. Take away those turnovers, and they actually had a game on their hands. And that was with Luke Falk at quarterback, who through no fault of his, the minute he steps back in the pocket, guys are on him. So you'll never know if he's any good or not. And they could. And Philadelphia, I like Wentz, and he always looks good, but something's missing there. I don't know what it is. I think they're a good team. I think Minnesota may be a little better.
Just out of curiosity, the point you just made, I would think it's a bit of a challenge on your end. I'll cite the Cowboys as an example to come back to the Eagles, and that's beating the Giants, who were a mess with Eli Manning, the Redskins, who ended up firing their coach, and a Miami team that could be historically bad. Then they lose to New Orleans with a backup quarterback, and honestly, Green Bay's killing them, and I don't know who calls plays. You're murdering them. They can't stop the run, so keep running the ball, have the clock run, and shorten the game and get out of Dodge. And Green Bay keeps throwing, and that turns into a circus act at the end. But basically, Green Bay was a winner gate to wire against the Cowboys. So Dallas plays 3 bad teams. Now they're 0-2 against quality teams. And you said the Eagles play the Jets. How do you grade that? I mean, it's human nature. In their sleep, they kind of could win that game. So bad habits and goofy things creep in when you get a game like that. But then what do you do treating them moving forward?
I would grade them even lower than you. I would say they beat 3 subpar teams and 2, I'll give you middle of the road teams right now. Green Bay doesn't strike me as a killer. The Saints without Breeze, not a killer. They're 500 ball clubs, but that's it. And they lost both of them. Could they have beat New Orleans? Sure, they could have. But they didn't allow a touchdown against New Orleans, but they still lost the game. And yesterday, as you said, Green Bay kept throwing the ball. Roger Zoll is going to keep throwing the ball unless it's the last 2 minutes and the game's won. He's not going to just line up and let it run the ball. So that's just the way it is. But they ended up they lost it. A lot of turnovers, and that seems to be the problem right now. If you take their last 4 games, they've turned it over 8 times and only had 2 takeaways. You can't win like that.
You got it. All right. The Dysfunction Bowl, and this will be interesting to see what the reaction was from the odds makers. Washington laying 4 at Miami, totals 40.5. I had seen an advance number of Washington 6.5. Gruden gets fired. Callahan's going to assume the duties. So is that sound about right at the bookmaker end of things? Was it a tad higher before the firing of Gruden?
It was. We opened the game 5 on Saturday. We're at 4. Some places are at 3.5. We were down to 3.5 for a little bit. The coaching change is usually a plus for a team immediately. Miami coming off a bye, but can a bye really help Miami? That's my question. And we talked a few weeks ago, going down their schedule, that this was one of the games they could win. But I really don't think it's going to happen.
You just took the thought right out of my head. I was going to say, if you're going to sit here, if this team is going to win a football game, which is a sad state of affairs, and it is a football game, and it's a goofy-shaped object, so I guess on any given Sunday. But as you said, put a dose of reality into this. If Miami's looking at their schedule, an extra week to prepare against an ordinary, if not worse than ordinary football team, this is the game they better circle if they want to make sure they win a game this year.
Well, this is it. We went down at the other week. I think they have Cincinnati. I can't remember if they're on the road or at home, but there's only 2 or 3 spots where they could win a game, and they'll be underdogs in each and every one of them.
Hey, the odds makers got it right. It was funny, during the week, just looking at the schedule without the numbers, and I'm looking at it, and almost at the 11th hour, I look at it and go, oh, man, that Atlanta-Houston game, at a conference game, I bet you that's a sneaky track meet. And then I go and I look at the number, and you guys nailed it. I mean, it was 49. It got bet up over 50, breezed over. Atlanta's a dog's breakfast, and Arizona is competing really, really hard. I'm a little curious of the total I get, 52. Was it hard to make Atlanta a favorite on the road?
It was, and I don't think it'll stay. We opened Atlanta 3, very little money. We're down to 2.5. Adjusted this morning to 1.5, and I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Arizona close the favorite.
Well, I wouldn't. I'll be honest with you. It was a coin flip. While we were watching the Atlanta game with Houston, we were saying, I bet Gruden and Quinn could get fired tonight. That was what we were talking about during the day. Wake up in the morning, Gruden got fired. As of this minute, Quinn survived. But this would absolutely, wouldn't you think, be the end of the rope if the Falcons don't win this one? That's all she wrote for their head coach?
I would think so. And in the Gruden case, I mean, when the coach likes a quarterback and the owner likes another quarterback, the coach is usually gone.
Especially Dan Snyder.
Yeah. Not that he has a track record of success, but
well, ain't that the truth? Good call there. But 52, that's a high total, but it stands to reason, right? Neither defense sets the world ablaze.
No.
Let's go to Tennessee and Denver. Denver's laying 2.5. Total on the game is 38. This is intriguing. Denver gets a lot of points right out of the gate and then did their level best to give the game away. But to their credit, they were able to beat the Chargers, who just, I think, have been a shell of themselves. I think Rivers, if so, you're talking about Brady maybe losing a step, I think Rivers has lost a step, and Gordon not having been there from the beginning really stymied the Chargers. So the Broncos get the win. My thing would be in the total of 38. That makes complete sense. Last week, the Bills-Titans game going, where are the points going to come from? They didn't come from anywhere. We stayed well under a very low total. This could be of a similar ilk here. The Tennessee was involved. That was a backyard brawl, and now they got to travel up into altitude. Not an easy spot for the Titans here.
No, not at all. And as you said, Denver, there's a lot of smart money for Denver yesterday, and they were proved 100% correct right out of the gate. I mean, they went right down, up 7-0, controlled the game thereafter. This is a tough game. On a neutral field, this is a real tough matchup, probably even. I think Denver 2.5. I think it could go to 3 with our home field advantage and traveling cross country, like you said. But I don't expect much movement.
And then the Steelers and the Chargers, Mason Rudolph with a concussion. Jack, I don't know if you guys have an extra quarterback laying around the office. I don't know what you do with Pittsburgh here. And the Chargers laying 6. They've got to have a stone in their shoe. But here's another one. The total on the game is 41.5. And, you think the Chargers they're capable of putting points up, but the one thing Pittsburgh is doing, they're flying around and getting after it on defense.
They are. That's their only recourse right now. I think that really is Tomlin's specialty is defense. I know they have the defensive coordinators, but I think he tends more to oversee that and let the offense go its way in the pastures because of Roethlisberger. But now without him, his duties have to be split, and they're going to be the only way they can win is to play defense all the way. Hodges wasn't terrible in relief yesterday. Basically, we're saying a 2-point difference. Thinking Rudolph was out, we put this game up at 6. If Rudolph were in, this game would probably be 5, 4.5.
Sunday Night Football, boy, middle of the summer, you're looking at this going, well, they got themselves a dandy here. And all of a sudden, I think they're trying to put lipstick on a pig on this one with the Steelers quarterback
unfortunately,
situation.
The numbers always come out where the Chargers are a bigger favorite than the public. The public is smarter than us with the Chargers right now. But statistically, looking at numbers, they always are the favorite, but they don't get there.
That's been their MO for a lot of years. All right, we go to Monday night. Now, all of a sudden, wait a minute, the stars are out of alignment because the Sunday night marquee game is taking over the spotlight in the sport, and Monday night kind of turned into the dregs. All of a sudden, you got a great Monday night game with Detroit taking on the Packers. The Packers laying 4.5. Total on the game is 48. This Lions team, fresh for this game, all of a sudden, they look like a really, really, really good football team. It's a small sample size, but I think you got to give them credit for who they've played so far. And then the Packers, what a great effort against Dallas. But I will say this to you, Jack. I don't know what this team is doing. They beat the Cowboys, but you think of some of their previous games where they got it first and goal at the 1 and they're throwing 4 times and they're murdering Dallas. I mean, Jones is getting like 8-9 yards a carry. They've got a huge lead and Rodgers is throwing it all over the place and extending the game. And the Cowboys came back and had a puncher's chance. That was like some of the stupidest stuff I've ever seen in a football field. They turned that into a game that they had to expend a lot of unnecessary energy in.
They did. Actually, it was an exciting game towards the end. They were coming back. Now, naturally, you and I aren't looking at what Rodgers looks at when he steps to the line of scrimmage and how the defense is set. We have an idea on TV, but he knows so much more than we're ever going to know.
It's true.
It must be that they must have been stacked. Even though they weren't stopping the run, they had to be stacked in a way that they were trying to stop it. And I guess he just went from that to what would be the natural recourse. And I think also his ego was involved. He loves to throw.
I think that I like the latter better than the former, but you're being nice to him. But you're spot on. I mean, he knows. But then they did a lot of goofy stuff too. Where Jack, he snapped the ball the one time, in the last 3.5 minutes, and you're trying to survive and get out of there, and the clock's running. He snapped the ball with 14 seconds left on the play clock, like a high school quarterback wouldn't have done that.
I see that so many times in the pros, in high-level college football games. It's unbelievable. Especially it's difficult in college when you get those teams that rush to the line of scrimmage and they just have to stand there. And while they're standing there, you either get illegal procedure, wrong formation, or they snap it early. It's just so difficult. I don't know why they do it that way. Why they just can't go to a huddle at the end, take the clock down, snap the ball, and run it.
All right, give me the quick recap then. How was it for the house on the weekend?
The weekend was good. We were happy with it. The big game was Kansas City on Sunday night. That was the make or break game for the day, and luckily it fell our way.
Well, we always appreciate your time. We're racing right along. It's an intriguing NFL season. Some very good, some ordinary, and some really bad teams. Keep the odds makers on their toe. Jack, always appreciate your time, bud.
The pleasure was mine.
Have a great week. There you have it. A look ahead to the NFL.
Betmaker, let's make some money tonight.
Well, that's the Betmaker Show for now. We publish multiple times each week. We'd like to thank you for listening, and if you liked what you heard, please take a moment to leave a rating and review, or subscribe to our show feed, or share our show with a friend or two and help us grow the show. We very much appreciate it. Visit us on the web at betmaker.com. And reminder to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks to our engineer, Darren Vandermolen, and producer, Mike Gallivan. The Betmaker Show is a production of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated. Betmaker is a registered trademark. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this content without the express written consent of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated is strictly prohibited.
The handicapping and sports odds information contained on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Please confirm the wagering regulations in your jurisdiction, as they vary from state to state, province to province, and country to country. Using this information to contravene any law or statute is prohibited. The podcast is not associated with, nor is it endorsed by any professional or collegiate league, association, or team. This podcast does not target and is not intended for an audience under the age of 18. If you think that you have a gambling addiction, stop this podcast now and please seek help.
Gambling and betting on sports is a form of entertainment and should be about having a good time. But when done excessively, it may negatively affect other areas of a person's life, such as their physical and mental health, school or work performance, finances, and or interpersonal relationships. At betmaker.com and the Betmaker Show, we're concerned about the addiction that gambling may cause, and for this reason, we encourage everyone to practice responsible gambling, an approach to gambling that helps you ensure that it remains an enjoyable activity. Here are the main principles of responsible gambling. Don't think of gambling as a way to make money. Always gamble with money that you can afford to lose. Set limits and stick to them. Never chase losses. Don't gamble when you're depressed or upset, and create a healthy balance. Always be aware of how much time you spend gambling or thinking about gambling. And do not allow gambling to cause you to miss out on time with family and friends or time spent on other activities you enjoy. By following these guidelines, gambling can be a good time and great entertainment. If you feel at any time that your gambling is taking away from important areas of your life, is causing you stress or depression, or is leading to financial losses that are beyond your control, please reach out for help. Learn more at responsiblegambling.org.